Hello everyone and welcome to AZA 2016 Public Policy Making. This is the first lecture of our 12-week course where I'll just basically introduce the unit to you. Take a moment quickly to have a look at this rather cute picture above here and also this Hausa proverb from Nigeria. Give thanks for a little and you'll find a lot. I'll be using a lot of proverbs throughout the semester because it sort of underpins everything we do in policy making. So it's important, I think, that we resonate with these. You all know who I am, hopefully, since I took you for AZA 1010 last year, so let's skip these pleasantries and move on to important information for this semester. The most important thing to know is that there is a prescribed textbook for this unit. It's Anderson's textbook called Public Policy Making. It's the 8th edition, available in the library now, also on the campus bookshop. You can also buy an e-version of it. But just important to know, this textbook is very American, so all the examples provided are American examples. Now, the reason I'm using this textbook is because the content, the theoretical content, is very well explained compared to other policymaking textbooks. So I really want to use the textbook for that reason. But because there are so many American examples, what we'll do is we'll balance that out with a South African textbook on policymaking as well. This is Klute and de Koning's textbook, also available through the library reading list as an ebook. But I suppose you can also go and buy it on Takealot or Loot or wherever you want to buy it on an online platform. But it's important because we're using quite a few examples from Klute and de Koning and examples from around the world. But it's just important to get a balanced view of different understandings of policy and examples of policy making. So again, while we're taking theoretical content from Anderson's textbook, we're also using Klute and de Koning and many other readings as well to try and balance out a number of cases from different perspectives. Okay, so secondly, please check under unit resources on Moodle because I've provided you all with a list of websites to visit for relevant and interesting information, not just for that though, but also for helping you in your policy analysis assessment, especially later on in the semester. There are a number of great websites there from institutions, think tanks, non-profit organizations, whatever, you name it, it's up there, government websites, and Center for Policy Studies from around the world. Please go and have a look because they have a wealth of information there that you can access and use throughout the semester. Also, please be aware that I'm away at an international conference from the 25th of July until the 28th of July, the reason why we're not having a physical lecture, and that's why I'm recording this one for you. So please note that I'll only have intermittent access to emails while I'm away, so you can still email me, but I won't be able to answer you as quickly as I normally do. So email me and then just wait a couple of days to expect an answer back. But I will be back on Monday the 31st of July, and you can always come and see me during my consultation hours or email me and I'll respond. Please also make a note that weeks 5, 8 and 11 are all online tutorials, so there's no physical tuts on campus those weeks. But please remember the drill, these online tutorials count just as physical tutorials do, so if you do not participate in the online tuts, then you will be marked absent on pass. And remember that there is a hurdle requirement for this unit. If you miss more than 75% of the tutorials, then you will get an overall capped mark of 50% for the unit. So it's tedious, I know, but please understand this and take responsibility for it and realize that you must attend many tutorials, if not all of them, because it's essential that you do attend. Okay, let's move on then to our next important point, which is choosing the class rep. Adorable. Okay, now the first thing we've got to understand is that we can't choose the class rep right now because there's no physical class taking place. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to email me with 2 or 3 lines as to why you would like to be the class rep, and then please do so by the Friday the 28th of July because I'll post these lines on Moodle and then I'll ask everyone to vote on Moodle for who they want as the class rep, and then that person will be the class rep. So it's just up to you to say. Just don't go on too long, but just in a couple of lines say why you'd like to be the class rep for public policy making. Okay, let's go through our assessment tasks for the semester. There are a few here, so we'll just do it line by line. The first one is a Moodle quiz, which is only 2.5% of the value of the whole unit, but nevertheless, Moodle quizzes are important. Remember, they are the difference between a D or an HD possibly, or a credit and a D, for example. So please remember that you can't ignore this quiz. It's happening in week 3, and it'll be open basically for all days, working days during that week, so from Monday to Friday. Then, please make a note of this. I put this in red on purpose so that you don't avoid confusion here. Our lecture period is on a Wednesday at 8 o'clock in the morning from 8 till 10, but the class test is called a class test because it was supposed to be scheduled during that time frame, and that's why the unit guide says class test in it. but the test will be taking place during the scheduled test period on a Friday afternoon, because that's when all tests have to take place according to the faculty rules now. So it will take place on Friday the 1st of September at 1:30 in the afternoon. I'll give you more details during the semester, but basically just understand, don't be confused by the idea that it's called a class test. It is a test that was supposed to take place during class on the Wednesday, but is now taking place on the Friday afternoon in the scheduled test slot. Okay. So more on that later, but it does count 15%, so it is a sizable chunk. You're going to want to do well there. Also, let me forewarn you about that. The test questions will be quite similar to the exam questions, and if you drop down here to the exam value, you'll see that it's worth 40%. So you're going to want to do quite well in the class test, because it is sort of like a test for you in terms of the final exam, because it will be quite similar in terms of structure. Okay, the next very, very important assessment for you this semester is your policy analysis. It's worth 30% of the overall unit, so it is a huge chunk apart from the exam. It's due on Monday the 18th of September, so that's the beginning of week 9. I'll talk about the policy analysis a little bit now as well, so I'll just leave it for the moment. You will also be involved in a policy simulation activity or exercise this semester that will count 7.5% of the overall unit grade. And I'll explain more about that as well throughout the course of the semester. So we'll leave it for the moment. Also important, 5% tutorial and discussion forum participation. That is important. It happens throughout the semester. You will only get your 5% if you attend all tutorials and you participate in all forum discussions. Okay, so it depends on how much you want to be involved this semester. If you're involved a lot and you attend all tutorials, then there's a pretty good chance you'll get 5 out of 5 for that one. So it's worth looking into. All right, just another important note, and we always say this in international and political studies, but try and keep a copy of your tasks for your own records and try and keep them on a cloud if you can, because stuff happens and you might lose it. So remember that the -5% per day policy always applies still. So it's important to not get stuck in that situation where you lose marks unnecessarily. So it's important to keep your information backed up on a cloud. Okay, that's enough of that, I think. Let's move on to our policy analysis discussion. You might have already noticed this from the unit guide, and also the instructions are already on Moodle, so you might have already had a look there as well. But I just want to go through this quickly with you. We will talk about this again in tutorials, but here we go anyway. Please make a note of this. It's a 2,500 to 3,000 word policy analysis, so it's not a tiny one, people, okay? It's important because you have to know how to write a policy analysis, because if you become a policy analyst, that's probably what you're going to be doing 60 to 70% of the time that you perform your job. So you've got to do it well. So this one, it has to be this long. So it's 2,500 to 3,000. And what I'd like you to do is I want you to analyze and critically discuss one of the policies listed below. So just one, capital and bold letters there, people. Please don't pick 4 and discuss all of them. You must just pick one. The options are the South African government's policy on human trafficking, the South African government's policy on national climate change, safety and security, sport and recreation, national health insurance, national transport. Important here, there's a focus on e-tolls there. So it's important that you don't discuss all of national transport. If you select that one, the focus must be on e-tolls in particular. Right. There's also a 7th choice, that if you'd like to pick your own white paper or act from any other country around the world, so you don't want to do a South African one, that's fine with me, but please make sure that you come and see me first and discuss it with me before you embark upon this policy analysis on your own. Please note that if you don't consult me, I will not be able to grade the analysis, because it's very important that I see what kind of policy you're looking at. I have to make sure that you've picked a white paper or an act and not a green paper or a bill, because we're looking at actual policy here. We're not looking at policy in process. In other words, we're not looking at bills or green papers yet. We're looking at actual white papers, acts that are signed into law. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide so you can see what I'm talking about for a second. This is just a screenshot that I put up for you of the Prevention and Combating of Trafficking in Persons Act in South Africa. It's Act number 7 of 2013. This is what I'm talking about. When you're analyzing the policy, you're going to want to find the white paper, the act, the actual act itself, because you're going to need it to be able to analyze the policy. This is an example of what one looks like. Okay, so if I go back, this one here, the policy on human trafficking, that's this here. All right. So that's an example. So what you're looking for is you're looking for the white paper or the act. And if you want to pick one from another country, by all means do so. In fact, great, go ahead and do that. It would be wonderful. But please check with me first and show me which white paper or act you're going to be analyzing. I want to see the actual document. Okay. Please understand that it's very important that you follow a specific framework for this. Okay, because this is a policy analysis essay. It's not a normal essay. It's not a research report. It's not any other kind of argumentative essay or anything like that. It's a policy analysis, public policy. So it's different from foreign policy. If you took foreign policy, then you'll understand the differences as we go throughout the semester. But I would like it to be split into the following framework, people, please. I want an introduction. I want a theoretical component. So that is, I want you to talk about what is policy making so that I understand that you know what it is, okay? Then I want you to talk about the background of the policy, including a brief description of the problem. I want a brief overview of the policy environment next, the official and unofficial actors involved as well as their views. It's important to include then a brief overview of the content of the policy. Here I've put in brackets and capital letters. Please do not simply rewrite the policy because that makes no sense. I can read the policy on my own. This is more like a summary of the key aspects of the policy that are important. Then you must do an evaluation of the policy in terms of the strengths and weaknesses of the policy and provide possible policy alternatives. What could be done to improve the policy as well as a conclusion. Okay. Please make sure that you look at the instructions on Moodle because I tell you there how many sources are required. I think I said 10, but check please what it should look like. But I suggest that you use the International Studies template because that provides the correct formatting and margins and the correct line spacing already. So save yourself some trouble and bother and present it already using the INT template. Okay. Remember that we will discuss this again. So if you have any questions about it, don't freak out unnecessarily. We can discuss it together. Just start thinking about it. Okay. Hopefully there are some brain cells being sparked at the moment thinking about what you could do. Okay. Now, take a moment to consider why you are wanting to do this unit, please. Is it for any of these reasons? I'm going to show a few slides and I'd like you to just think about these. Maybe you have a piece of paper next to you right now. Great, jot down a few thoughts as we go through this. But are you taking policy making for any one of these reasons? The first one, because you've got no choice to and you have to in order to get this degree. Okay. If that is your answer, then I understand it fully. But also try to be positive in your approach to this because even if you don't want to be a policy analyst, it's important to understand policymakers because they are politics. The environment, socioeconomic and political, is important for any job that you undertake in the future. So basically everything that you do in this unit will inform or underscore any job that you take in the future that's related to politics or even international relations. So even if you don't want to be a policy analyst in particular, everything that you do here will be important. Okay, so try not to approach it in this way, even though I do understand if you feel like you had to do this because you had no other choice, basically. Maybe you're doing this unit because you understand the importance and value of community. Collaboration is everything. It's basically key. So that's important too. You'll find out why community is important in understanding policymaking throughout the semester. Another reason could be this. You may interpret this picture in a number of different ways, so it's completely up to you. But perhaps one of you might say it's obviously linked to children because there's children in the picture, but it could also be linked to education because some of them are wearing school uniforms. It could also be linked to a rural background because they're running along a dirt road. It could also be linked to agriculture because the sides could be some sort of agricultural farming, maybe there's sugarcane growing there, something similar. So there are a number of different links to this policy, but you can already start seeing how so many things are important and also valuable in understanding policy making and public policy in general. One policy could have 75 different facets connected to it. It's extremely complex. Let's try another image. What about this one? Okay, so we've got there a bucket toilet. So that's a bucket toilet system on the left-hand side over here. And then I don't know if anybody here knows what this is, but if you're already shouting it out at the screen, congratulations to you. This is illegal electricity consumption. So these are people taking these illegal wires. It's also called dangerous wiring, and you can kind of see why, because that is not safe, people. Look at that. I mean, it looks like a rainbow of colors, which is kind of nice, but that is definitely not good. Dangerous wiring. So here, the idea would be around electricity usage, providing electricity, so it's service delivery issues here as well. That's all linked to policy and policy making. You might want to do policy because of this. Another issue around agriculture and farming. And maybe the country basically gets most of its GDP from agriculture. If it does so, then you're going to want to ensure that the public policy making is pretty solid in that area in terms of agriculture. What about the following? Industry, mining. The same sort of thing applies with regard to GDP. Maybe you're doing policy making because you're interested in this, the idea of entrepreneurial activity, thinking like an entrepreneur, for example. Okay, this is also important in policy making, especially when it's linked to economics and the socioeconomic environment or context. Maybe you want to do it because of this, because you're very worried about climate change. Okay, even if you don't believe in it, people, the weather is weird. Okay, so something is definitely going on, right? So here, links to the environment, links to water, links to electricity, links to a number of different areas in society would be connected with policy making. So that might be one of the reasons why you feel like you could be interested in this unit, is because of its links to climate change and the environment, and basically trying to save the planet before we actually destroy it. Maybe you want to do it because of this. Sorry about the squished picture, but basically I'm trying to show you images of healthcare. So we've got this, I don't know what you make of the peg and the fact that there's a doctor's suit behind it, but I'm kind of hoping that you make the link or connection between the healthcare services and how much money they cost. Because now this links to issues around free healthcare, national health insurance, private medical aid, public hospitals, access to equipment, access to medication, generic medicines. All of those issues are important. Every one of us has family members affected by this kind of thing, so it's pretty important to discuss health and health issues and how they relate to policy. Also, on the left-hand side here, I put this picture in because it was kind of weird and quirky, but also because it links to health, but there's an issue around technology here with this robot. So now we're looking at the future of health technology as well. This is pretty cool and exciting, very innovative ideas coming through, new technologies all the time to improve health and healthcare and conditions and health, general health of people, but also how much is all this going to cost? Especially, for example, in countries like South Africa that are emerging, or other economies that are emerging or developing countries where so much of the money has to go to infrastructure and other areas. So how much money should we dedicate to health? Something to think about. But you might also want to do policy making because of this. You want to make things happen, or you want to see things happen. So if you are a person who's interested in politics generally, and you generally participate in events that are political in nature, then you probably are this kind of person. That's your political culture. Okay, so you're geared towards that, making things happen. If you become a policy analyst, there are two things that could happen. One, you analyze policy that exists, and you provide those reports to government so that they could try and change policy, hopefully, if it's not working. Or you could run for politics, some sort of office, be elected, or become a member of parliament in some way, or you could become a worker, a service worker for in the government in some way, and in that way you can make things happen. So there are two ways to look at this. But if you do policy making, then you have the skills to be able to do this. So my next point is, when you think of the job title policy analyst, what is it that comes to your mind? Okay, now you can be quite honest here. So obviously I can't hear you at the moment, but you can tell the screen what you think, and I'm pretty sure that some of you are thinking this. Or this. Yeah, because very often the idea of studying policy sort of gets a bad rap, because people think it's either about this, some guy standing in front of everybody else with charts saying what's good and what's bad, or it becomes so boring that you want to fall asleep in front of your computer. Okay, and that is how policy making might have been seen in the past. And so once upon a time it could have been very linked to bureaucracy and red tape and that kind of stuff. And please understand me when I say that this is certainly true to an extent now, even in any government around the world. But to also make a note that it's not like that to that degree anymore. Okay, there are elements of it, but not to that degree anymore. Because now it's more about issues of planning for a society, budgeting for policy making. So understanding how to budget, cost-benefit analysis, seeing what you could put in place, what could be effective and what couldn't be. Program evaluation. That's what policy analysts do these days. They evaluate programs, and they can get paid quite a bit to do so as well. They can look at program design, and they can design their own programs. They also are involved in program management, so you could get a job in program management as well if you have policy making behind you. And interestingly enough, you can also get a job in public relations if you understand policy as well, because so many of the aspects linked to PR as well. You can also work in the non-profit sector, and you can run for office or be in politics, as I mentioned before, the previous slide. So you can do a number of different things if you are a policy analyst or you study policy making. Usually what you would end up doing would be writing reports like a policy analysis. Okay, now if you hate data, I understand. A lot of people do. But I want you to try and have a look at this link over here. And it's a fun link. It's basically histography.io, and it looks at understanding different events in history over time along a graph. So let's see if this loads quickly enough for us to have a look. Okay, it's coming in. But just have a look for fun. I mean, you're not going to be tested on this, people. Okay? So it's just for fun to have a look. So you're basically looking at literature, music, wars, politics, construction, inventions, riots, women's rights, disasters, art, nationality. It goes all the way down to a number of different categories, actually. You have politics there. That one. And you highlight in history, like this one, for example, slavery abolished in the British Empire. And then you can go and have a look at related events. Okay, now obviously it's based on Wikipedia, and I'm not one to say that Wikipedia is the best thing out there, but it does help if you want to understand basic ideas or have a basic understanding of something. So the idea is to just not downplay this. Have a look at it, have fun with data, and start exploring stuff in history and seeing if you can actually enjoy it a bit. Okay. Right, so we're back from that link. And we're on to our next point. So you'll be writing written reports, but there's also briefings that you might be able to give to companies, if you're a risk assessor, for example, to banks, to government, to organizations. You would write for magazines. You could do TV interviews. Here's an example of a TV interview for Karima Brown, who's a political analyst, speaking about restoring confidence in South Africa. It wasn't too long ago, just a few weeks now, basically, the end of June. Have a look at this. It's quite an interesting video, and she's basically talking about consumer confidence in South Africa. Very interesting. So that's the kind of job you'd be able to do. So have a look at what she has to say. And then skills that you'll get from learning about policy and policy making would be how to think critically, trying to solve problems, and also, pretty importantly, communicating effectively. Because if you can't communicate effectively, how will you ever get your plans across in a correct way that will obviously or hopefully affect positive change? Because the idea is always, hopefully, to affect positive change. So you can only do that if you can communicate effectively. All right, let's go on to what you need to do for next week. This is TUT preparation for week 2. So these things are already available on Moodle because they've been open since the 24th. But there are a couple of things I want you to have access to and to watch. It's the first one is this Hun interview. Oprah is interviewing this person. There's also What's Incredible About Being Human as well. That's on Moodle. And then there's an extract to a link. Why is it important to get more people involved in politics and policy making? That's also under Moodle Week 1. Please go and watch these. Now, I understand that some of them are long. I mean, one's 55 minutes, okay, and the other one's about 30 minutes. But one is also an extract. Now, because this class is technically only about 25 to 30 minutes long, then actually, if you think about it, the other hour and a half, which you should be having, you can take to watch the interview and the second interview and to read the extract as well. So technically, this is not taking you outside of the 2-hour lecture. So it's good. Okay, now what I want you to answer is this question. I want you to think about what you're hearing, seeing, and reading in these videos and articles, and be prepared to write a very short mini essay. Now, I emphasize that, okay? It's going to be a very short mini essay, but it will happen in the first tutorial in week 2. And the essay is going to be on the human condition. So I want you to think about this. What is it? So watch these videos, read the extract, and answer the question, what is the human condition? How does the concept of the human condition link to policy making? Right? It's important that you understand that this will count for marks, so please do not skip this exercise, otherwise you will not get marks for it, and that will be naught for your first tutorial, which you do not want, okay? Besides, it's pretty important that you watch these and that you explore these concepts, because it will underpin everything that we do throughout the rest of the semester. Okay. So, that's it everyone for the first lecture. Thanks for listening, or taking the time to listen. Please do go and fulfill all those requirements for tutorial 2, and I'll see you all in the first tutorial next week and in the first lecture. Okay, remember to email me if you need to, otherwise I'll see you then. Okay, bye all.